Daniel, who was up here, he sent me an article after we looked at the 10 most expensive weddings on the planet in human history. Do you remember that a couple of weeks ago? He sent me an article, and it was very, very interesting. There's a Crockett man from Crockett, Texas, who robs a bank on October 4th, a Friday, three weeks ago. And the question is, why did he do such a thing? Why would this normal, ordinary kind of guy, who's a decent kind of guy, a good kind of guy in the community, why did he do such a thing? Why was he so desperate? Why would he take such a risk? And you know what the answer is? From the newspaper, from the reporting, to pay for his wedding. He said he didn't have money to pay for the ring. He didn't have money to pay for the venue. And the wedding was the next day. He robs the bank on Friday. The wedding was on Saturday. Oh, my word. So weddings are a big deal. Weddings are a big deal if you want to go to a bank robber's wedding in Crockett, Texas in 2019. And weddings are a big deal if in 1981 you go to the most expensive wedding on the planet, $110 million, Princess Charles and Diana. Or to Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's wedding. That's fourth on the charts for all-time most expensive weddings. Everyone knows weddings are a big deal. And the Song of Songs says, of course weddings are a big deal. Because God embedded, He planted magic into marriage. He planted magic into weddings. He took pieces and parts of His glory and said, it is good. And so there's a potency of His glory, there's a potency of magic in marriage, the Song of Songs says. So of course weddings are a big deal. Do you know how the Crockett man was caught though, y'all? Well, you know there are surveillance cameras in banks, right? I think everybody knows that. So his picture, while he's in the act, is photographed. The police take it and put it online. Now, Crockett's a small town. It's a small town of 6,500 people. Everybody knows everybody in Crockett. It's the sixth oldest town in Texas. It's outside of Houston East. It's towards East Texas. It just so happens that his fiancée is online doing last-minute wedding stuff and sees his photo robbing the bank. Can you imagine that conversation? I mean, can you imagine saying, say, sweetie, yesterday when you said you went to get cash from the ATM, what did you exactly mean by that, right? Oh, my word. Well, the Song of Songs is saying this to all married people this morning. So if you're married, this is what it's going to say to you this morning. If you are in a meaningful relationship, this is what it's going to say to you. If you ever hope to be in a meaningful relationship, the Song of Songs is going to say to you, what did you expect? What did you expect was going to happen when you got married? What did you expect when you got in a meaningful relationship? And if you hope to ever get in one, what do you expect? Please stand for the hearing of God's word.
Song of Songs 6, 4 through 13. You are beautiful as Tirzah, my love, lovely as Jerusalem, awesome as an army with banners. Turn away your eyes from me, for they overwhelm me. Your hair is like a flock of goats, leaping down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of ewes that have come up from the washing. All of them bear twins. Not one among them has lost its young. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. There are 60 queens and 80 concubines, and virgins without number. My dove, my perfect one, is the only one of her mother, pure to her who bore her. The young women saw her and called her blessed, the queens and concubines also, and they praised her. Who is this who looks down like the dawn, beautiful as the moon, bright as the sun, awesome as an army with banners? I went down to the nut orchard to look at the blossoms of the valley, to see whether the vines had budded, whether the pomegranates were in bloom. Before I was aware, my desire set me among the chariots of my kinsmen, a prince. Others, return, return, O Shulamite. Return, return that we may look upon you. Why should you look upon the Shulamite as upon a dance before two armies? This is the word of the Lord.
Please be seated. Okay, so is everybody straight on what this passage means? Did you get all that down? Good night. Okay, Lord, we ask that you would shine on the page. Would you fill us with your Spirit? Would you give clarity to the mind, realness to the heart? Would you speak us back to life again? And we ask this in your name, amen. Okay, so let's look at the driving force. You need your text open. You need your electronic device open. Let's look at the driving force of all relational messes. Let's look at the engine. Let's look at the power of all relational conflict. It's found in Songs 5, 2 through 5. So it goes like this. She's asleep. She's half asleep, and she hears a sound. Her beloved is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my perfect one. For my head is wet with dew, my locks with the drops of the night. And she says, I had put off my garment. How could I put it back on? I had bathed my feet. Why do I want to get them dirty again? All right, so here we go. You ready? Here's what happens. The heart, the engine, the power of all relational messages. Someone is knocking and the other doesn't answer. Literally, he's knocking for sexual intimacy, verse 2. And she says, she doesn't answer. She says, not tonight, honey, I've got a headache. I'm really, really tired. Now, this isn't the only knocking that goes on in relationships. It's not the only knocking that goes on in a marriage. Let's say marriage. This isn't the only desires. We knock for respect in marriage. In meaningful relationships, people knock for respect. We knock for affirmation. We knock for acceptance. We knock and we try to seek from the other person. We look for love. We look for intimacy. We look for friendship. We want a meaningful conversation. We look for help. We look for comfort. We want to be understood. We long to be listened to. We knock for no conflict. Can we just not have any relational drama? Can there not be any relational conflict or messes? We knock for that. We knock for me time, as someone said the other night on Wednesday night. We knock for, can I just have 30 minutes of Sports Center from 10 to 10:30 with no demands, no needs needing to be met? I just want to catch up on the scores. Is there anything wrong with that? We knock for that. We knock for, can I read for a little bit? Can I watch this program for a little bit? And we knock for control in our marriage. We knock to be right in our relationships. And maybe number one of all, we knock to be worshiped. When we knock and the other doesn't answer, when the other blocks us from our desires, when the other doesn't meet our desires, there's conflict. Always. And the Song of Songs is here to help us. It actually does want to help us. It wants to get to the heart. It wants to get to the bottom of what relational conflicts are. It doesn't want to deal with the side things. It's going to avoid the side things because it really wants to help you by showing you, here's the heart of it all. Here's the driving force of it all. So it's not just about you lacking financial planning. It's not just about you having differences of opinion and personality differences and gender differences. It's not just about you not having conflict resolution skills like, okay, who has the peace stick? You can't talk because you don't have the peace stick. I have the peace stick. It's not just those lacks of that kind of stuff. It's not like lacking date nights and lacking scheduling sexual intimacy or lacking having time together and spending time together. Do you know what happened the first time Nancy wanted to spend time with me exercising? You know what happened the first time that she says, hey, let's exercise together? You know what she said after we exercised for the first time? Because, we wanted to spend time together because we wanted to do these things. She said, I will never, ever do that again. But wait, we're spending time together. We're trying to have this meaningful, let's do kind of you want to do what I like to do. I like to lift. I like to go to the gym. I like doing this kind of stuff. And she's like, no, never again. I will never do that again. The Song of Songs gets to the bottom. It gets to the heart of the real issues in your relational messes. You know what it says? It says all relational messes, all relational conflict is two desires, or if you get a group of people together, multiplicity of desires in conflict. Two warring wants. two kingdoms in conflict. If Paul was here, he'd say, hey, man, it's just two self-absorbed people, in other words, doctrinally called sinful people, coming together. What did you expect would happen when that happens? What did you expect when two self-absorbed people come together in the most intimate relationship designed by God? What did you think was going to happen, the Song of Songs says? And then what do you think was going to happen when you have a family and you get a bunch of self-absorbed people in the same house sharing the same space? What did you think was going to happen? And then what did you think was going to happen when you get a church together of a bunch of self-absorbed people? What did you think was going to happen? And then when you get a ball club or a classroom or you get your book club, the band, an athletic team, what did you think, your coworker, what did you think was going to happen? The Song of Songs says. So the question is, how do then self-absorbed people like us, how do we actually have relational renewal? How's that even possible? I mean, seriously, if you've got self-absorbed people, how do we experience to have relational renewal? Meaningful relationships. How can that even happen? Well, last week we saw that help came from the angle of the woman. This week we see that help comes from the angle of the man, but even as I say that help, I just want to say, but don't get your hopes too high. And the reason why I don't want you to get your hopes too high is we look at it from the angle of the man, because what we're going to look at from the angle of the man is absolutely impossible for us. It's above us. It's above our powers. It's above our control. It's beyond us what we're going to look at. It's the only help, the major help from the angle of the man that you're going to get, but it's impossible for you and me to do. Oh my word, it's so hard that so few attain it. Do you know that? What we are about to look at, there are so few that actually attain what we're going to look at. There are so few that actually experience it. 40% of marriages fail at it. It's so hard to do that it's the number one reason that the holiest people on the planet, called missionaries, leave the mission field. It's so hard to do that the greatest apostle who ever lived, Paul, failed to do it. So what is this thing? What is this impossible thing that we so desperately need, but it's so hard to do? Answer: the double grace of reconciliation. The double grace of reconciliation. Up till now, we only have the angle of the wife, don't we? We haven't heard from the husband yet. We haven't. All we know, the last we've seen, he's walking away. Remember, he knocks, she doesn't answer, he walks away. So don't miss this. Do not miss this. This is what we know so far. Without him, there's no relational renewal. Without him, there's no relational renewal. Oh, what do you mean, Jeff? No, that's what I mean. Without him, they will never be relationally renewed. There can be forgiveness. There can be forgiveness without relational renewal. But if you want relational renewal, there must be reconciliation of the parties. Without him, it doesn't happen. And some of us are wondering, what do you mean? You're killing me. I mean, I thought forgiveness was a big deal. I thought forgiveness was like major in relationships. I thought forgiveness is like the heart of everything. So how can you have forgiveness in a relationship and there not be reconciliation? And there not be relational renewal? And here's the answer from the text. Watch what's happening. She sees her selfishness, right? So she sees that her desires have overruled her. If Paul was here, Paul would come around, he'd put his arm on her and says, I wrote about this in Romans and Ephesians and Galatians. Do you know what happened here to you? And she's like, what? Please tell me. You had an epithume moment. Thume means desire. Epi means mega over big. You had a mega epi over desire. There's nothing wrong with wanting to, there's nothing wrong with having a headache and just not feeling right and just being tired. Nothing wrong with that. But it went mega, it went epi. It went so mega epi. How do you know it went mega epi? Because you were no longer self-giving to your husband. Now, we can talk about that in this context another time. That's on a Wednesday night. I'm not doing it here. But how do we know that she knew this was self-absorption and selfishness on her part? How do we know that? Because in 5, 6 through 8, she says so. And she does so with vivid images. She's saying she sees her selfishness. She sees her selfishness. She feels her selfishness to such an extent it hurts her heart. It bruises her heart. But she also sees and she also feels his selfishness. Don't miss that, because she sees it, because his desires overruled him. His desires went epi, mega, and over. If Paul was here, he'd say also, the Old Testament calls it idolatry. When your desires go mega, when your desires go huge, when they go over, when they break their designed place and they start moving into God's place, it's called idolatry. And so all these desires, all these knockings have their place, but if they go mega, if they go divine, if they go apocalyptic, if they go epi, they move us in horrible, harmful ways. And that's what happened to him. He lacked self-giving love towards her. His desire for sexual intimacy went mega. Well, how do we know that? Because the dude walked away. He was mad. He started withholding relationship. Now watch what she does with his selfishness. It's breathtaking. She forgives him. She seeks to reconcile with him. But what if he doesn't admit his wrongdoing? But what if he doesn't admit his selfishness? What if he doesn't admit that he's wrong? What if he doesn't forgive her? What if he withholds relationship? You know what happens? There's no reconciliation. There's forgiveness, probably on her part, right? But there's no relational renewal. There's no double grace reconciliation. There's no him. Relational renewal involves the double grace of reconciliation. It's almost impossible. Evidence seems to point in that direction. So we got two quick applications at this point, because there needs to be two. They're sort of obvious, but we need to hear them. Right now, you can breathe the fresh air of forgiveness. Right now. Right now, you and I can breathe the fresh air of forgiveness, whether you're the woman or the man. Right now. Even if your spouse doesn't forgive you, you can breathe the fresh air of forgiveness. Even if your child doesn't forgive you, you can breathe the fresh air of forgiveness. Even if your parent doesn't forgive you, you can breathe the fresh air of forgiveness. The woman's heart took a beating for her sin in verses 6 through 8 of chapter 5, but her beating ends, and her beating is over at the cross. At that devastating place, God himself took the ultimate beating, took the ultimate bruising, as the prophet Isaiah would write about, that he was stricken and he was smitten, he was beaten and he was bruised. He took it to end all beatings, to end all bruisings. You can breathe the fresh air of forgiveness now. Second quick application is this: you forgive your spouse, forgive your child, forgive your parent, forgive your coworker, forgive your friend. Forgive them. Even if your spouse won't admit their wrongdoing. Even if your child or your friend or your coworker won't forgive you. Even if they withhold relationship with you, you can forgive them. Paul says it this way. He says, look, if possible, and I love how he says that, if possible, because it's a double grace. The single grace is forgiveness. The double grace is reconciliation. And he's saying, look, if possible, as far as it depends upon you, be at peace. And so you and I right now, we can be at peace with God. We can breathe the fresh air of forgiveness, and we can be at peace with others. We can forgive them. And we can ask for forgiveness. But you are not in control of whether they see their wrongdoing and admit their wrongdoing and whether they forgive you or stop withholding relationship with you. So how does the impossible happen? You've thought of that. How does this double grace of reconciliation happen? How do both parties reconcile? How does the impossible happen? First, notice it does happen. This is incredible. Look at verse 13. He says, why should you look upon the Shulamite? A Shulamite, you can get two interpretations here. It could either be a young woman from Shuman, which is a town in Israel, probably what's happening here, or because it's a play on words with the imagery in the text and it's in the feminine, it could mean Solomon's girl. So, why should you look upon Solomon's girl or a Shulamite as upon a dance before two armies? I want you to look. I hope your Bible has a footnote. The ESV has a footnote after two armies. Do you have that? If you don't, throw your Bible away. Seriously. I mean, what good is it if it can't give you, the meaning of the text? Anyhow, look at the footnote after the dance of two armies. The dance of two armies, the footnote says the dance of Mahanaim. Mahanaim's a location. Mahanaim's a place. When you get that location in that place, what is that? Wait, I know what that is. That goes all the way back to the Old Testament. That goes all the way back to Jacob and Esau. That goes all the way back to their reconciliation. The most epic reconciliation in all the Bible happened at Mahanaim between two brothers who were two armies coming at each other. And remember, we got one guy who's he's a thief, he's a deceiver. I mean, he's a whiner. Not many people would like him. He's just annoying. His brother, probably most people would like. He'd probably have all the followers on social media. This guy didn't. And Jacob, steals his birthright. It was so traumatic. It was so dramatic. He had to flee for his life. It ripped their family in two for years, so much so that they all grew, had their own wives and their own kids, and now they have their own families. And now he's coming back to Israel, and everybody in all the land, even those that aren't from Israel, are wondering what's going to happen. Esau is going to wipe him off the planet. And at this place called Mahanaim, it didn't happen. The two armies came peace. Isn't that unbelievable? It's so shocking. It was so shocking to Jacob that when he looked at Esau, he says in the text, it was like I was looking at the face of God. Because the heart of God is reconciliation. And when he experienced reconciliation, it was like he was experiencing the impossible. The cross is Mahanaim. It's where two armies got reconciled. So this epic reconciliation, the image of the epic reconciliation, the last words in this section, this is the last words of a section, and we go to a new song on the album next week. But the last words of this song on this particular place is reconciliation. They reconciled two armies. So how does that happen, though? How does this impossible stuff happen? How can you have double the grace? Ruth Graham, wife of legendary Billy Graham, perhaps the greatest evangelist who ever lived, she answers it this way for marriage. She says, you know what a happy marriage is? Here's her answer for reconciliation. A happy marriage is the union of two good forgivers. And Song of Songs says, yes, yes, Ruth. And it's just going to add one more thing, though. Song of Songs is going to come up to you and me, and it's going to say, you bet, that's so true. But I'm going to add one more thing. Someone has to make the first move. Who makes the first move in this text? She does, of course. Because she's the warrior, he's the wuss. She makes the first move. I mean, she comes to her senses first. She's the one that says, I'm so selfish. Oh God, I hurt him. I rejected him. Oh God, my heart hurts. She's the first one to come to her senses. She's the first one who forgives. She forgives first. She's like, I forgive him. Of course I forgive him because God has forgiven me. Because there are no more beatings. God took the beating. So I don't take the beating, and I don't have to make him take the beating in our relationship anymore. Of course I forgive him. She's the first one to seek him. She goes, I love how she talks. She says, I'm sick with love for him. I wish there was some language that we would still use today. I would love to hear Nancy say, honey, I'm sick with love for you. Wouldn't you love that kind of interaction? I do. I think that's like really cool. I'm sick with love for you. You know, today we say, I'm sick with love for you. I'd say, well, go see Natalie. She asks, where is he? Where is he? Where's the one that God gave me? And then she says, I am my beloved's and my beloved's in mine. It only takes one. It only takes one. And it changes everything. And so this text is saying to you who are married, and to you who are in meaningful relationships, and to you who hope to be in meaningful relationships, be the one. Be the warrior. Don't be the wuss. Right? And why? How can you do that? Because Jesus made the first move for you. And then he makes a million moves towards you every day.